So right now, about 50% of companies that fire their human customer service teams to replace them with artificial intelligence are actually desperately trying to hire them back.
Yeah, it is entirely wild to watch unfold.
It really is. I mean, they didn't just fail, you know? They
Yeah.
are actively bleeding money trying to reverse what is essentially a multi-million-dollar mistake.
Right, and that 50% number, that's according to the latest projections from Gartner.
Exactly. But the thing is, we don't even have to look to the future to see the damage.
No, the damage is already here.
Right, because if you look at the data from Robert Half, more than 30% of U.S. hiring managers who eliminated positions specifically to hand those tasks over to an AI, well, they've already had to reinstate those exact same roles.
Which is just, I mean, the logistical whiplash of that is staggering.
Whiplash is the perfect word for it. They fired people, plugged in an algorithm, watched their operations basically catch fire, and now they're scrambling to hit the undo button.
Because rolling back a software update is, that's just a Tuesday afternoon IT project.
Right, no big deal.
But attempting to roll back the dissolution of your actual workforce, especially after severing all that institutional memory and alienating your clients.
And shattering employee trust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is a full-blown organizational crisis we're watching companies realize in real time and at a massive expense that you simply cannot reboot human capital.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive. For you listening right now, whether you're, navigating this shifting job market or maybe you're running a team trying to integrate these tools, we are unpacking the mechanics of this massive backfire.
It's so necessary right now.
It is. We're diving into this brilliant research piece by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover to really understand why these highly touted algorithms completely failed to replicate human judgment.
And they failed spectacularly in some cases.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to examine the hidden costs that are just hemorrhaging from balance sheets right now. And probably most importantly, we're dissecting the playbook of the organizations that are actually fixing this mess.
Because there is a right way to rebuild.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. To understand the scale of the failure, I think we have to look at how executives were thinking between, say, 2022 and 2024.
The hype cycle years.
Yeah, the peak hype. Because this wasn't just standard economic belt-tightening, was it?
And not at all. I mean, think about a traditional layoff. If it's driven by a recession or a merger, it sends a very specific signal to the market.
Like market contraction.
Exactly. The company's retreating. They're saying, hey, we can't afford this right now. But these AI-justified layoffs were fundamentally different because they were positioned as aggressive strategic advances.
Oh, interesting. So they were basically bragging about it.
They were. Executives weren't claiming they couldn't afford the workforce. They were actively claiming the workforce was technologically obsolete.
Wow.
Yeah, they were making this deliberate bet on what economists Brynjolfsson and McAfee define as substitutive technology adoption.
Substitutive.
Right, as opposed to complementary adoption.
Okay, wait, let me make sure I have this right. So complementary adoption is like giving an accountant Excel so they can, build their financial models faster.
Yes, exactly. The tool helps the human.
But substitutive adoption is firing the account entirely because you bought a piece of software that claims it can just do all the math by itself.
That captures the mechanical difference perfectly. And the trap these companies fell into was assuming that these large language models, the generative AI, was actually advanced enough to execute complex workflows.
Like judgment-based workflows.
Right, independently.
Yeah.
And we saw this aggressive substitution posture leap first into some really specific sectors.
Tech, obviously.
Tech, yeah.
Yeah.
Financial services, media, and professional services.
All the heavy knowledge worker industries.
Exactly. Leaders in these spaces, they basically confused a technology's ability to produce a really plausible, articulate output in a highly controlled vendor demonstration.
Right, a stage demo.
Yeah, a demo. They confuse that with its ability to reliably execute daily operations in a super unpredictable, edge case heavy, real world environment.
I have to push back here, though, just a little bit.
Sure, go for it.
Because if we look at the history of technological adoption, like, I don't know, the transition from mainframes to the cloud, or even just the introduction of the internet itself.
Right.
There's always this period of chaotic disruption before the long-term productivity gains kick in, right?
Yes, the productivity paradox.
Exactly. Brynjolfsson's own earlier work points to this exact lag. So why shouldn't a CEO just, weather the storm?
What do you mean?
Like, take the hit to customer service for 18 or 24 months, let the language models train on the new data, wait for the next iteration, and just push through instead of panic rehiring everyone.
It's a fair question, but the problem with that strategy is the sheer velocity of the capital bleed.
The velocity.
Yeah. The historical technology transitions you just mentioned, they generally introduce friction into internal workflows.
Like the accounting department slowing down while they learn the new software.
Exactly. But this AI substitution wave, it directly impaired external revenue engines.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see the difference.
Right. So when a bank's automated system begins systematically alienating its most lucrative clients
Which hits the bottom line immediately.
instantly,
Right.
or a media company's SEO ranking just plummets overnight because their AI is generating algorithmic spam.
Right.
The company literally cannot survive the 24-month wait for the technology to mature. The market simply punishes them way too quickly.
Because their competitors who didn't fire everyone are just sitting there waiting to scoop up those angry clients.
Exactly. Competitors who retained their human workforce immediately absorb that fleeing market share.
And the demographics of who they fired actually made that capital bleed even worse, didn't it?
Oh, it was a disaster.
Because the narrative back in 2023 was always that AI was coming for the menial, repetitive, entry-level tasks.
The mundane stuff.
Right. But the source material for this deep dive shows that organizations actually disproportionately eliminated mid-career professionals.
Yes.
We are talking about the $80,000 to $120,000 salary layer. Analysts, senior editors, mid-level account managers.
Which demonstrates a profound, just a fundamental misunderstanding of what those mid-career roles actually entail.
How so?
Well, executives looked at a job title, like let's say account manager. They looked at a list of discrete tasks on paper.
Drafting emails, generating reports.
Checking inventory, right. And they concluded, well, an algorithm can handle this.
Easy.
But what they failed to account for is something called tacit knowledge.
Tacit knowledge, that's the knowledge that isn't written down in the corporate handbook, right?
It's the uncodified expertise that actually makes an organization function.
Like the stuff you only learn by doing the job for 5 years.
Exactly. It's the analyst knowing that a sudden dip in a specific supplier's output isn't just a statistical anomaly that the AI should smooth over in a graph.
But actually a major red flag.
Right, a geopolitical red flag that requires pivoting the entire supply chain immediately.
Wow.
Or it's the account manager knowing that a particular legacy client needs a phone call, not an automated email, when a deadline shifts by even 1 day.
Because otherwise that client pulls their account.
Exactly. That contextual judgment lives entirely in the minds of the human workforce.
So it's not in the CRM system?
No, it's never in the CRM. So when you eliminate that mid-career layer just to save on payroll, you are essentially amputating the sensory organs of your own organization.
Amputating the sensory organs. That's a brutal image, but it makes so much sense. It kind of reminds me of that classic business problem where a new manager comes in and tries to optimize a factory floor.
Oh, right.
They walk around, they see workers standing idle, and they think, oh, I'm going to remove all this idle time to be more efficient.
And then everything breaks.
Exactly, because they discover that the idle time was when the workers were actually maintaining the machines and listening for weird noises.
Yes.
When you just unleash algorithms onto the operations floor without that human tacit knowledge to guide them, they break the fundamental revenue engines.
They absolutely do.
Let's actually look at the financial sector to ground this.
Yeah.
Because the research from Huang and Rust outlines severe deterioration in both customer experience and quality control.
Yeah, the banking sector is a perfect lens for this.
How did this actually play out mechanically in a bank, like step by step?
Okay, so let's look at the deployment of AI in underwriting.
Okay.
The logic, from the C-suite perspective anyway, seemed totally unassailable.
Because it's just math. Right.
Right. Underwriting is essentially risk probability calculation based on numerical inputs. You've got credit scores, debt-to-income ratios, asset valuation.
All very clean data points.
Exactly. And an algorithm can process those variables exponentially faster than a human loan officer ever could.
So on paper, it looks like a massive win.
On paper. But the actual rollout resulted in dual catastrophes.
Dual catastrophe.
Yeah, massive compliance risks on one side and staggering opportunity costs on the other.
Okay, break that down for me. Why? Because the AI couldn't read the context of the numbers.
Exactly. It could only read the historical patterns it was trained on.
Okay.
So imagine a human underwriter looking at a loan application where the raw numbers fall just slightly below the optimal threshold.
The AI would just reject it.
Instantly.
Yeah.
But the human realizes the applicant is, say, a medical resident who is about to enter a highly lucrative specialty in a booming local market.
Oh, I see.
The human contextualizes the data, approves the loan, and secures this high-value lifelong client for the bank.
And the AI just issues a standard rejection letter.
Right. It simply sees a debt-to-income ratio that violates its hard-coded parameters.
And suddenly the bank is basically handing its best future customers directly over to its competitors.
Yes, that is the opportunity cost side of the catastrophe.
Man. And what about the compliance risk?
That emerges on the completely opposite end of the spectrum.
Okay.
So the AI might approve a huge batch of commercial real estate loans because the historical data for that specific zip code shows incredibly strong returns over the last 10 years.
Seems logical for a machine.
Right. But the algorithm lacks the contextual awareness that, let's say, a major anchor employer in that exact zip code just announced this morning that they are relocating to another state.
Oh, which a human underwriter would have read about in the local morning paper while drinking their coffee.
Exactly. The human would halt everything. But the AI just blindly approves the loans based on the past decade of data.
The local economy tanks, and the bank is left holding the bag on millions in toxic assets.
Exactly.
That is terrifying. And, we saw the exact same mechanical failure in the media sector, just applied to words instead of numbers.
Yes, the media rollout was incredibly messy.
Publishers laid off huge chunks of their editorial staff, assuming generative AI could just churn out equivalent content at a fraction of the cost.
Because it can write sentences.
Right. But they didn't factor in the actual mechanics of how these language models work under the hood. They are stochastic parrots.
Right.
They predict the next most likely word based on training data. They literally do not know how to verify facts.
No, they have no concept of truth. And the resulting hallucinations, where the AI generates this plausible sounding but entirely fabricated information,
It destroyed the promised efficiency gains.
completely wiped them out. Because publishers suddenly had to divert their few remaining senior editors, the ones they didn't fire, into full-time fact-checkers just to prevent libel lawsuits.
Which is an awful use of a senior editor's time.
It's a terrible use of resources. And beyond the factual errors, the content itself just lost its editorial voice.
Graphics so bland.
It lacked that nuanced understanding of what stories actually resonated with their specific audience, their specific community. It just became generic algorithmic noise.
Which brings us to a much deeper rot happening inside these companies, I think. Yeah, I want to talk about Scott Page's 2007 research on diversity and innovation because this is fascinating.
Oh, yes. I love this research.
It's so good. He points out that breakthrough ideas emerge from diverse human perspectives challenging assumptions.
Yes.
So if an AI only optimizes based on existing historical data, and you've just fired all the diverse humans who are generating new ideas, you aren't just hurting today's customer service.
No, you're doing much worse.
You are actively killing your future product pipeline.
You are locking your organization into a deterministic loop.
A deterministic loop. That sounds bad.
It is. Because innovation inherently requires the ability to make non-obvious leaps.
Right.
You have to connect completely disparate pieces of information in novel ways. You have to challenge the status quo.
Which AI is specifically designed not to do.
Exactly. An algorithm is designed to minimize error rates and replicate historical success. It cannot, by definition, innovate.
It can't think outside the box because it only knows the box.
Right. It can provide incremental optimization of existing processes, sure. But it will never, ever invent a new category.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, looking at the downstream financial hits from all of this. Because they are just brutal.
Oh, they compound so quickly.
Customer acquisition costs skyrocket, right? Because now you have to spend exponentially more on marketing just to replace the angry clients that are fleeing your brand.
All right, your brand reputation is actively eroding every single day.
And then you have the ultimate stupidity tax.
The stupidity tax. I love that phrase.
It really is. Because to fix this broken innovation pipeline and put out the operational fires, you have to rehire the exact experts you just fired.
Yep.
But now they're angry, they might be working somewhere else, so you have to pay them a massive premium to poach them back from the competitors they fled to.
It's true. The balance sheet damage is severe. But honestly, focusing solely on the corporate financials misses the core driver of the rehiring friction.
What do you mean?
Well, if we want to understand why organizations are struggling so intensely to rebuild these teams right now, we really have to examine the profound psychological impact this had on the workforce.
The human cost.
Exactly.
The source material actually dives deep into this concept of technological unemployment, citing Warburg's research.
Yes.
And the idea is that being replaced by a piece of software triggers a completely different kind of psychological trauma than a standard economic layoff.
It really does. Think about it. A standard layoff communicates a lack of resources.
Like we said earlier, market contraction.
Right. The organization is essentially saying your skills are highly valuable, but our current revenue just cannot support your position right now.
It's not your fault, it's the economy.
Exactly. The displaced worker retains their professional identity.
Right.
But technological unemployment communicates a lack of intrinsic value.
Oh, wow.
The organization is stating explicitly your years of accumulated expertise, your contextual judgment, your entire professional identity is actually inferior to this piece of code.
That is devastating.
It triggers intense skill devaluation anxiety.
It's an existential threat to your entire career identity.
Yes.
And we know from David Padula's research that these systemic labor market shocks, they do not hit everyone equally.
Not at all.
The data shows that when these AI layoffs occurred, they frequently exacerbated existing structural inequalities.
Very much so.
They heavily impacted professionals of color and women who subsequently faced much longer unemployment durations and severe wage penalties.
Right. So the organizations effectively purged the exact diverse perspectives they required to navigate the very technological transition they were attempting in the first place.
It's so short-sighted.
And this sets up an incredibly complex dynamic when the operational failures finally force the C-suite to initiate the rehiring wave.
Okay, I want to talk directly to you, the listener, for a second.
Yeah, put yourself in this situation.
Exactly. Imagine you have spent a decade mastering your craft. You know the nuances of your industry. You know the subtle edge cases. You know the complex client histories by heart.
You are the expert.
Right. Then leadership calls a virtual all-hands meeting, and they announce your entire department is being automated.
By a chatbot.
By a chatbot. So you spend the next 6 months draining your savings, navigating a brutal, brutal job market, and wrestling with this terrible anxiety that your chosen career might just be completely obsolete.
It's a dark place to be.
And then, out of nowhere, your old director calls you. The algorithm failed. They are losing clients hand over fist. They are begging you to come back.
The cognitive dissonance for the worker in that scenario is just immense.
I mean, what do you even say to that?
Right. The immediate vindication, the absolute proof that human expertise was in fact necessary, is almost entirely overshadowed by a profound sense of exploitation.
Exploitation, yeah, I can see that.
The worker realizes they were essentially subjected to an involuntary, unpaid beta test for a deeply flawed technological initiative that jeopardized their financial security.
It wasn't an upgrade, it was an experiment with their livelihood.
Exactly. The trust deficit is absolute.
So when a company hits that wall of broken trust, how do they actually fix it?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because we all know they can't just quietly post the old job openings on their careers page and pretend the last year didn't happen.
They try, but it doesn't work.
The research from Gillespie and Detz points to the necessity of transparent acknowledgement. But, let's be real, corporate apologies are historically terrible.
Oh, the worst.
They usually default to that passive voice, legal speak. You know, mistakes were made, we regret any negative impact you may have experienced.
Right, the non-apology apology.
Well, exactly.
And that kind of sanitized communication actively deepens the trust deficit.
Because it's insulting.
It is.
Yeah.
Rebuilding effectively requires organizations to engage in what organizational psychologists Colquitt and his colleagues define as procedural justice.
Procedural justice. Okay, what is that?
The core premise of procedural justice is that individuals are deeply invested not just in the outcome of a decision like, getting a job offer, but in the fairness, the transparency, and the ethicality of the process that led to it.
Okay, so it's not just about getting the paycheck again, it's about how the company handles the conversation.
Exactly.
So how does an organization actually demonstrate procedural justice when they're trying to re-recruit a workforce they literally just discarded? What does that process look like in practice?
Well, it requires dismantling the typical corporate defensive posture completely.
Okay.
To establish accuracy and voice, which are two key tenets of procedural justice leadership, must conduct an honest, public postmortem of the failure.
A public postmortem, like admitting they were wrong out loud.
Yes. They have to clearly acknowledge the specific signals they ignored. Like, for instance, if frontline employees gave warnings about the technology's limitations before the rollout, leadership has to admit they ignored them.
Wow, that takes some serious humility.
It does. They must explicitly admit that the initial decision was based on flawed assumptions or, vendor hype, rather than rigorous operational testing.
Let's look at Duolingo, because I know they provide a really fascinating case study in how to navigate this exact pivot.
Yes, they do.
They are a massive language learning platform, and initially they basically followed the exact playbook we've been critiquing here.
Right. They reduced their content creation staff quite significantly.
Acting on the assumption that generative AI could just produce equivalent language exercises at scale.
And they immediately encountered the severe limitations of substitutive adoption.
What happened?
Well, the AI could generate grammatically correct sentences, sure, but the user feedback revealed a rapid, noticeable deterioration in the actual learning experience.
Because grammar isn't everything.
Exactly. The exercises lacked cultural nuance. They lacked modern slang. The pacing and progression of difficulty became really erratic for users.
Oh, that would be so frustrating as a learner.
But most importantly, the pedagogical joy. That quirky, highly engaging personality that actually differentiated the app in a crowded market, it was flattened into sterile robotic text.
And I imagine the user engagement metrics began to reflect that loss pretty quickly.
They absolutely did.
But their response is what actually sets them apart, right?
Yeah.
Because instead of doubling down or blaming the market or, secretly hiring cheap freelancers to rewrite the AI content behind the scenes.
Which a lot of companies try to do.
Right. Duolingo's leadership openly admitted the limitation. They actually acknowledged that human creativity, pedagogical expertise, and cultural understanding were simply irreplaceable components of their core product.
They practiced procedural justice.
And they rebuilt their content teams, right? Shifting the AI from being a substitutive replacement to a complementary tool that just assisted the human creators.
Exactly. And Klarna, the fintech organization, they took a slightly different but equally illustrative approach to procedural justice.
Okay, what did they do?
Well, when they faced significant internal and external backlash for their aggressive AI deployment strategies, they recognized the need to build correctability and bias suppression directly into their corporate governance.
Okay, correctability and bias suppression. What did that actually look like in practice? Did they just put an AI suggestion box in the break room?
No, they went much further than that. They instituted formal technology ethics review boards.
Oh, wow.
And these boards explicitly required representation from the everyday employee base, not just executives and senior engineers.
So the people actually doing the work had a seat at the table.
Exactly. They also mandated strict, localized pilot testing requirements with predefined success metrics before any enterprise-wide deployment could even be considered.
So no more overnight company-wide rollouts just because the CEO saw a cool demo.
Right. They fundamentally altered the process of technology adoption to ensure that human oversight and continuous feedback were structurally required.
That's amazing. But I have to say, the financial remediation has to be there too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because a nice apology and a new ethics committee, that doesn't replace the savings a worker burned through during their 6 months of unemployment.
No, it doesn't pay the rent. The procedural justice frameworks absolutely must be paired with tangible, restorative financial compensation.
What are companies actually offering to get these people back?
Organizations that are successfully recruiting their talent back are offering substantial signing bonuses.
Like apology bonuses.
Essentially, yes. They are offering accelerated equity vesting and enhanced compensation packages that explicitly, in writing, acknowledge the disruption and financial stress the worker endured.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's a tangible admission that the returning employee is providing vital leverage to the organization, and they must be compensated for the very real risk of returning to an employer with a track record of, frankly, extreme volatility.
Right, because you don't know if they're just going to do it again next year.
Exactly.
Okay, so admitting the mistake and making the worker financially whole, that's step one. That's the baseline.
The bare minimum, really.
Right. But if the company just plugs these returning workers back into the exact same workflow they had before, the friction is just going to ignite all over again.
It will fail again.
Which brings us to socio-technical systems research by Eason, and this crucial shift from the illusion of substitution to the reality of complementarity.
Yes, socio-technical systems theory is so important here. It posits that an organization cannot be optimized by focusing solely on its technical architecture.
The software and algorithms.
Right, or solely on its social architecture.
People and the culture.
Exactly. The two systems are deeply, inextricably intertwined. When these companies attempted role-level substitution, looking at a job title like customer support specialist and just handing that entire role to an AI, they treated the organization as a purely technical system.
They ignored the humans.
They completely ignored the complex web of social and contextual interactions that actually resolve real customer issues.
So the actual fix requires shifting from role-level substitution to granular task analysis. You have to break down what a human worker actually does, minute by minute, and redesign the workflow based on the fundamental differences in human and machine capabilities.
Precisely. We have to clearly delineate those capabilities if we want this to work. AI excels at pattern recognition within stable, well-defined parameters.
Right, crunching the numbers.
It is highly efficient at retrieving specific data points, summarizing historical records, and executing standardized logic trees.
In other words, it operates best in environments of low ambiguity.
Low ambiguity, exactly.
And humans operate in high ambiguity.
We thrive in it. Humans excel at contextual judgment, ethical reasoning, empathetic communication, and creative problem solving.
We get the joke, we read the room.
Yes, we interpret nuance, we understand shifting priorities, and we can intuitively navigate scenarios that have absolutely no historical precedent in the training data.
Right.
Therefore, in a well-designed socio-technical system, AI is positioned as decision support.
Support, not replacement.
Right. It accelerates the retrieval of information, while the human strictly retains the role of decision-maker.
The Shopify case study illustrates this redesign so brilliantly.
Well, it's a textbook example.
They initially attempted a highly aggressive automation of their merchant support. And if you think about it, if you are a small business owner running your entire store on Shopify, and your payment gateway crashes in the middle of a massive holiday sale,
It's a true emergency?
you are losing thousands of dollars a minute. So when merchants in that state of absolute panic encountered an automated chatbot just telling them to, clear their browser cache or read a FAQ document, the brand damage was instantaneous.
It was infuriating for the merchants.
But Shopify recognized the socio-technical failure, and they redesigned the system for true complementarity.
They didn't abandon the technology entirely.
No, they didn't. They just rescoped its deployment. They utilized the AI to handle the high-volume, low-ambiguity tasks.
Like checking basic API statuses, verifying account balances, surfacing relevant policy documentation.
Exactly, which instantly frees up the human representatives to deal with the actual crises.
Right.
The human isn't wasting 10 minutes looking up an account number. The AI hands them the complete file instantly, and the human focuses entirely on complex technical troubleshooting and empathetic relationship management.
They calmed the panicked merchant down.
Exactly. And they creatively solved the bespoke coding issue that the AI couldn't even comprehend.
And the critical design choice Shopify made in all of this was empowering the human workforce with explicit override authority.
Override authority, that's huge.
It changes everything. The humans were explicitly granted the agency to ignore or countermand the AI's recommendations anytime their contextual judgment dictated a different approach.
So the technology was finally subordinated to human expertise.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? It's like looking at commercial aviation, right?
Okay, I see where you're going.
We've had autopilot for decades, literally decades. But nobody wants to get on a plane without a highly trained human pilot in the cockpit to handle the severe turbulence or the sudden system failures.
Right.
AI is the autopilot. Humans are the pilots. It's also kind of like looking at the human workforce as the company's immune system and the AI as the circulatory system.
Oh, that's an interesting biological metaphor.
Think about it. The AI can pump the data and the routine processes around the company incredibly fast and efficiently.
Like blood in a circulatory system.
Exactly. But it has no ability to detect a novel threat. When a new market crisis hits or a completely bizarre edge case customer problem arises, the AI just keeps pumping data blindly.
It doesn't know there's a virus.
Right. If you've fired your human workers, you've completely destroyed your immune system. The company cannot fight off the operational infection.
The hound captures the vulnerability perfectly, and maintaining that immune system requires preserving what researchers Argot and Myron Spector identify as institutional knowledge.
Right.
When companies aggressively eliminated their middle management and their senior operational staff, they didn't just lose immediate productivity.
They lost the connective tissue.
They severed the informal networks that actually keep the organization resilient.
And this targets a massive misconception about middle managers, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the stereotype is that they just, shuffle papers and slow down innovation with needless bureaucracy.
The dreaded middle manager.
Right. And executives really thought they could replace them with these slick AI reporting dashboards that would just send data directly to the C-suite, cut out the middleman.
But Peter Grahn's research on distributed leadership paints a completely different picture of what middle management actually does in practice.
Tell me about that. What do they actually do that a dashboard can't?
Well, a dashboard can tell an executive that a major project is 2 weeks behind schedule.
Okay, useful information.
It is. But a dashboard cannot negotiate a delicate compromise between a totally burned-out engineering lead and an overly demanding sales director.
No, it definitely can't do that.
Middle managers interpret ambiguity. They translate abstract, high-level executive strategy into actual, actionable frontline tactics.
They herd the cats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They understand the informal power dynamics of the organization. They know exactly who to call in a completely different department to expedite a critical approval outside of the standard workflow because it's an emergency.
The creaky stairs.
The what?
Tacit knowledge is like knowing which step on the stairs creaks so you don't wake the baby.
Oh, yes.
They know which steps in the corporate process are going to cause a disaster if you step on them too hard. You can't put that in a manual for an AI to learn. An AI doesn't know about the creaky stairs. It just calculates the most direct mathematical path, steps heavily on the weakest board, and completely collapses the project.
That is exactly it. And when you remove the people who understand the architecture of those stairs, you create a deeply, deeply dangerous operational environment.
It's a trap.
Consider the scenario where a highly complex algorithmic system is inherited by a team of very junior employees right after all the senior staff has been eliminated.
Oh, man. Right, because the junior staff knows how to operate the software interface perfectly. They grew up with it, but they don't have the 10 years of tacit knowledge required to pressure test the output.
Exactly. The AI generates a strategic recommendation, maybe a dynamic pricing model or a complex risk assessment that appears statistically confident, but is completely contextually absurd in the real world.
But the junior team doesn't know it's absurd.
Because they lack the distributed leadership and the institutional memory to recognize the absurdity, the recommendation is implemented as operational reality.
Which leads to massive, entirely preventable losses.
Yes.
United Airlines actually managed to navigate this exact threat vector by intentionally protecting their institutional knowledge during their AI deployment.
Yes, their approach was fundamentally different.
How did they structure their rollout differently than the companies that are now paying the stupidity tax and panic rehiring?
Well, United Airlines treated their deployment as a continuous learning exercise rather than a definitive substitution.
Okay.
They did integrate AI into their customer service routing, but they implemented a robust early warning system.
An early warning system.
Yes, instead of aggressively reducing headcount and waiting for the quarterly revenue reports to reflect the outcome, they actively synthesized quantitative metrics like average call resolution times, with qualitative, real-time feedback from the remaining frontline human representatives and their passenger base.
So they kept the humans in the loop to watch the AI.
Exactly. So when the AI started mishandling complex flight itineraries for their most valuable frequent flyers, the human representatives caught the friction immediately.
And leadership actually listened to them.
They listened. They didn't entrench themselves in defending the initial strategy. They utilized that frontline intelligence to rapidly adjust the system routing, ensuring that highly complex edge case scenarios were immediately escalated to human experts.
They saved the brand loyalty.
They preserved their relationship capital by acknowledging that the algorithm simply could not navigate the sheer ambiguity of a cascading weather delay across multiple connecting flights.
Which highlights a really fundamental difference in corporate culture.
It does.
The source material emphasizes that organizations have an actual ethical obligation to mitigate the harm caused by these hasty deployments, referencing Bluestein's research on the multifaceted support that displaced workers really require.
Yes, the ethical dimension is critical here.
But implementing that support requires a very specific type of organizational mindset, right? Which Trevino's research categorizes as the difference between compliance-based ethics and values-based ethics.
That's right. And the difference is stark. A compliance-based approach is inherently defensive.
CYA, cover your assets.
Exactly. An organization realizes its AI strategy failed, they quietly roll it back, and they offer the absolute legally required minimum severance to any workers they don't try to rehire.
Probably attaching super strict non-disclosure agreements to the exit package, too.
Oh, always. The entire goal is risk mitigation and liability limitation.
It's just pure damage control.
Exactly. A values-based approach, however, aligns the organizational actions with core principles of accountability and stakeholder dignity.
Stakeholder dignity, I like that.
It requires recognizing that the strategic miscalculation inflicted tangible, real-world harm on individuals' livelihoods and career trajectories.
So if an employee or, a listener right now is trying to evaluate their own company, how do they know if leadership is actually operating on a values-based model or if they're just utilizing really good PR?
That's a great question.
Because Garvin's research points to this concept of a continuous learning system. What is the telltale sign of that system actually being in action?
The definitive metric of a continuous learning organization is its response to negative data.
How they handle bad news.
Exactly. In a rigid, non-learning culture, negative data regarding a highly publicized executive initiative is suppressed, or worse, punished.
Right, the messenger gets shot.
Yes. The frontline worker who flags that an AI pilot is failing is marginalized as being resistant to innovation or not being a team player.
Wow.
But in a continuous learning culture, the identification of failure is systematically rewarded.
They want to know what's broken.
They do.
Yeah.
The organization rigorously tracks AI performance against genuine, predefined operational benefits, rather than just relying on vanity metrics designed to validate the initial investment.
Salesforce actually provides the benchmark for how this accountability manifests in a real corporate environment.
They really do. Their response was fascinating.
Because when they realized their aggressive push into automation had outpaced the technology's actual current capabilities, their leadership didn't hide behind macroeconomic excuses.
They didn't blame inflation or the market.
No. They executed a highly visible pivot that prioritized the preservation of their workforce's dignity and honestly their own long-term organizational resilience.
Yes. Leadership publicly acknowledged the miscalculation regarding the AI's capacity to absorb complex responsibilities.
But more importantly, they initiated a comprehensive support protocol for the workforce impacted by the friction.
They went way, way beyond the standard outplacement brochure.
What did they actually do?
Well, they provided enhanced severance packages that significantly exceeded industry minimums, which acknowledged the extreme volatility they had introduced into those workers' lives.
That's huge.
They also accelerated equity vesting schedules to ensure departing employees actually retained the financial upside they had spent years earning.
Wow.
Furthermore, they leveraged their own massive organizational network, creating dedicated alumni support structures to actively facilitate warm introductions and transitions to new employers for the talent they could no longer retain.
That is incredible. They fundamentally rejected the idea that a laid-off worker was just a disposable liability on a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
They treated them as a valuable asset that simply didn't fit the current architectural model, and they protected that asset on the way out.
And you know what the byproduct of that is? It proves to the employees who remain at the company that leadership is actually tethered to reality, and that they are accountable for their strategic bets.
Right. It builds an immense reservoir of institutional trust, which is the exact currency you require to successfully navigate the next inevitable wave of technological integration.
Because there will be a next wave.
Always. We have really dissected a massive systemic failure today.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. We started with the overwhelming, almost intoxicating hype of the AI automation wave between 2022 and 2024.
The promises that were made.
Right. And then we unpacked the brutal reality of the 30 to 50% rehiring wave. The massive stupidity tax companies are currently paying for confusing a sophisticated algorithm with actual human tacit
It's an
knowledge.
expensive lesson.
We explored the deep, often hidden operational costs of losing that contextual judgment, the profound psychological toll on a displaced workforce, and ultimately the blueprint for designing true socio-technical systems where technology acts as the circulatory system, supporting the human immune system.
It represents a really vital maturation in how we understand the relationship between labor and automation.
Definitely.
And I just want to speak directly to the listener for a moment, particularly if you have found your own career path disrupted or shadowed by the anxiety of this massive technological shift.
Yeah, a lot of people are feeling that right now.
The empirical data and the market reversals we have analyzed today offer definitive validation. Your capabilities are not obsolete.
The algorithms failed because they lacked exactly what you possess.
Precisely. The operational failures across all these sectors prove that complex workflows simply cannot survive without human contextual judgment, empathetic relationship management, and the ability to navigate unprecedented ambiguity.
We need humans to navigate the mess.
We do. Moving forward, your strategic advantage lies in heavily emphasizing and refining those exact, irreplaceable human traits. The market is currently relearning, at great expense, that human expertise remains the premium asset in any functional socio-technical system.
The premium asset. That phrase actually leads me to a final, slightly provocative thought I want to leave you with, synthesizing everything we've uncovered in this deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the aggressive push for AI automation actually ends up proving through massive financial losses and very public operational failures that human contextual judgment is a company's most irreplaceable and vital asset, are we on the precipice of an era where artisanal human intelligence becomes the ultimate luxury brand in the business world?
Artisanal human intelligence.
Yeah, I love that.
Think about it. As automated sludge just fills up our inboxes and customer service queues, will high-value clients soon start to demand contractual guarantees that their accounts, their portfolios, and their projects are handled by a 100% real human.
It's very possible.
Exactly the same way we currently demand to know if our food is organic or our goods are handmade. Will human-made become a premium label we gladly pay extra for in the corporate sector?
It is a fascinating question. It's definitely something to chew on as you navigate your own industry. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and as always, keep questioning the hype.